Liberty will not be generously granted by authorities. It must be seized. This is Thinking Liberty. It's Tuesday, February 8th?
Yes.
It's the 8th.
The 8th.
2011.
The 11th.
We're live on, what is the site?
ThinkingLiberty.net.
That's right, thinkingliberty.net. This is an interactive anarchist broadcast with some bombast, and you can interact with us via the chat room, which some people are already in.
ThinkingLiberty.net/chat.
And we've also got email, phone number, Skype, Twitter, all that good stuff, because this is 2011, and we can do that.
Yes, the easiest way, just go to the website if you can, and you'll see all the contact information on the right side. Call us, Skype us, whatever.
Yeah. So right now we just have me, that's Darian. We've got Bile over there.
Hello.
And we've got Laura in the studio.
Hold on.
Hi.
Yeah, Bosco is on his way, as is Tennyson.
Yeah, Tennyson. We have to ask what's up with him. I thought he was leaving forever. Maybe that's next week.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He had his goodbye party, but I don't know
That's quite a build-up to have a goodbye party and not leave. There's something I don't know.
We'll have to see what the story is with him. He is going to be going, I guess, to DC pretty soon though. So we'll see how that's going when he gets here.
We shall see.
We shall see. So just before the show started, I went to Twitter. As we know, I have to tweak before the show.
Tweak?
And yes, that's what we're calling it now.
Tweaking?
We use Twitter to tweak the show. But before I did that, I saw that the Patriot Act provisions that the House was voting on did not pass. So, as you probably know, the USA Patriot Act was passed following the September 11th, 2001 attacks. Has a number of provisions that are very restrictive of liberty, very intrusive, giving government lots of spy powers that it didn't officially have before then. And a lot of us don't like that because we just don't like government looking through our stuff. You know, they're the ones who have so much to hide, yet they get to look through our stuff and we can't see theirs.
Well, not only that, what was it, the national security letters? They can say that they can write down on a piece of paper that this is a warrant and we're going to look through all your stuff, and you can't even tell anyone.
That's some pretty draconian shit there. So I will read from the Wired article that came out at 7:21 p.m. This is 8:04 p.m. for those of you listening live. The House failed to extend three key expiring provisions of the Patriot Act on Tuesday, elements granting the government broad and nearly unchecked surveillance power on its own public. The act was hastily adopted 6 weeks after the 2011 terror attacks. Three measures of the act are set to expire at month's end, and the House's lack of a two-thirds vote on Tuesday failed to move the sunsetting deadline to December 8th as proposed. The vote was 277 to 148, or 23 votes short. Moving on, the three expiring Patriot Act provisions are the roving wiretap provision, allows the FBI to obtain wiretaps from a secret intelligence court known as the FISA court without identifying the target or what method of communication is to be tapped. So not a very specific warrant, not even a warrant. Also, the, quote, lone wolf measure allows FISA court warrants for the electronic monitoring of a person for whatever reason, even without showing that the suspect is an agent of a foreign power or a terrorist. The government has said it has never invoked that provision, but the Obama administration said it wanted to retain the authority to do so. That Obama administration, always retaining authority.
Why wouldn't they?
Expanding the authority, out-bushing the Bush. And third, the, quote, business records provision allows FISA court warrants for any type of record, from banking to library to medical, without the government having to declare that the information sought is connected to a terrorism or espionage investigation. So, you know, you're politically unpopular and they want to look through your stuff. There you go.
Like Thinking Liberty?
Like Thinking Liberty. And
We can only hope.
again, I was reading from Wired, the threat level. It's an article by David Kravitz called House Fails to Extend Patriot Act Spy Powers, if you want to look at that.
To Google?
You could
Or I guess you could just go to Wired. I mean, it's old, so, like, 20th century. To actually go to the website.
see, I was looking at it on my pocket computer.
Pocket computer.
That's what I'm choosing to call my phone now because it has internet access, and I use that more than I would use a phone. So
Well,
it's a pocket computer.
didn't Microsoft used to call their like smartphones Pocket PC or their operating
Maybe.
system? I forget.
I do some pocket computing, on the move, the mobile computing.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend's father Super Bowl Sunday, and we were talking about cell phones because I have an Android HT2. Well, it's actually a Windows phone with Android on it, and I was actually updating the firmware on my phone while the Super Bowl was going on, and so he was questioning me what I was doing, and so I broke my phone during the Super Bowl, but he was asking. Oh, well, I have a phone. It's just a phone. I don't need any of this smart stuff. Like, I use it not as a phone. I use it for all the smart stuff. So there's plenty of us who simply use it as a pocket computer.
There you go, for pocket computing, and not to be confused with pocket pool.
No, but I'm sure when it's in your pocket and you're moving around, could be a proxy for that.
It could be, but mine is not. For all you listening out there. So we were talking about the Patriot Act. Now, don't we want government to protect us from terrorists? Why shouldn't they look through our stuff all the time?
Oh, we've got another guest here. Well, not in the studio yet. So what was the question?
Well, I think I don't hear many people still making this argument, but outside of political circles. But why? I guess the question for supporters of the Patriot Act would say that things like this are necessary to prevent terrorists.
Well, I think if if you ignored all the unintended consequences and the side effects, then yes, in an ideal scenario, having more information about what's going on would theoretically allow you to investigate all these things better. However, the side effects and all, the personal liberties that are invaded, that doesn't compensate.
So we just got Tennyson here in the studio. Tennyson, why don't you jump right on that mic and tell us why the Patriot Act is not a good thing and the fact that the three provisions were not extended tonight is also good.
Oh, well, only humans can act, and Patriot Act is an act, and things that don't act, so there you go. It's wrong. Just kidding. A little out of breath on my way up here.
You're just running up here.
Yeah, it took a brisk walk, up the hill, up the stairs. Now, I met a real nice person on the bus. I had a good talk with them, and they went over to Mitsui to get some ramen. So you might see them later, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Patriot Act was, if you're a constitutionalist or not, but specifically if you're a constitutionalist, was a gross violation of pretty much every protective amendment in the Bill of Rights, particularly the Fourth Amendment. Anything that does away with the Patriot Act, or at least the most egregious parts of the Patriot Act, most invasive things that are around there, is something to be celebrated.
And as anarchists, we might be posed the question: well, there are all these harmful people out there in the world. If we didn't have government, wouldn't these people be blowing us up more? And I say, no. Number one, the main reason these people dislike us enough to actually kill themselves to incinerate us is because they are oppressed, subjugated, deprived of a lot of basic necessities,
right.
And they see the U.S. government behind that, and because of desperation and not having proper morals, they think it's okay to attack just anybody anybody who's attacking them would further their goals.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it is, and it might even be more simply stated that they are specifically looking for the solution to their problems, and they see this as part of the problem, so therefore they can do away with it any way that they can, whether it's economically, some sort of divestment program, maybe it's tell people that this place is evil, call it the Great Satan, or then it can go into outright violence against the people who represent the place. So,
And when government kills people in terrorist actions who happen to be non-combatants, it's called collateral damage.
Right.
And collateral damage is an inevitable result of what we see, especially with the U.S. and its massive firepower response.
yes.
You hear about all these great smart bombs, but those smart bombs are laser targeted devices with 500 pounds of explosives on them. It's
Right.
going to do a lot more damage. This smart part is just so you only have to use one bomb. It's not because they care so much about the children in that apartment building or
Eventually,
anything like
they're
that.
going to have a bomb that's so smart it'll simply walk along the streets, walk up the stairs, open doors, find and ask for whoever it is they're supposed to kill, and then kill them.
Well, what if
Like the Terminator?
Kind of like the Terminator, but the Middle Easterners and who the Americans are fighting say that they've already got that kind of thing perfected. So,
all right. So, well, what about a bomb that is so smart it achieves sentience and then starts to question why is it blowing these people up? Isn't there a better way to solve problems?
you could think that maybe that would happen, but there's probably a way to prevent that through proper programming.
Just not make it that smart.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Give it a very, very limited set of subroutines. Make it think it's smart, maybe. Make other people think it's smart, and then there you go.
It would be a waste of future hardware
Exactly.
to make anything sentient that was going to blow up.
Yeah.
It's like, with Skynet. Like, why wouldn't it just decide, war is really inefficient. Why blow all this crap up when we could make even awesomer machines?
Yeah, this
I don't
is
know.
that's one of the questions that people have about the Terminator series. But I think James Cameron has said that because it was specifically designed as a military engagement intelligence system, that its first idea was always what it was already taught. That
see.
military engagement is going to be the solution to our problems, simply find the threats, and then we are going to use what tools we have in order to resolve those threats. But the concept of threat simply grew for the machine, and it
So-
became self-aware and then self-protective.
And
So-
once
Teach your
humans are,
machines well.
and once your threat is human,
right,
it's either enslave them like the Matrix,
Right.
or exterminate them.
like the Matrix.
Well,
They killed-
they
Terminators
used them as
enslaved.
batteries.
The
I know.
Terminator
They killed-
machines
think how many
enslaved some
people they
people
killed
too.
in Zion.
Lots, but
I know.
relative to Skynet, not
Yeah,
that many.
okay. Well, first it goes Skynet, then all of a sudden becomes the Matrix. That's the.
But then again, the Matrix is ongoing, so maybe
Right.
aggregately, but you don't know. It's too hard.
it
to
is.
figure.
It's too many, a shell within a shell kind
Now,
of thing. if you're
did the
thinking of
Terminator
Matrix.
exist within the Matrix?
Uh,
Was that sort of like it playing a game?
It might have. I mean, if we're going to conjoin them into the same universe, then I think that it's really a third-person perspective on the past. And we see exactly when Judgment Day comes and the machines become self-aware, but eventually there was a war between AI and what it created as a subsidiary AI. And this thing eventually succeeded it and became what we know as the Matrix. And instead of exterminating the humans like like Skynet or Mother was saying, they were going to simply become the Matrix and take these people. And we can use their pretty much unlimited creativity the way that they created us. They can create more things. They can create a whole world for themselves to deceive themselves. We can use their energy because they've done away with the sky.
I
We can
want
come
to
up
get
with-
back to the Patriot Act and terrorism.
Oh,
here.
Patriot
just
Act.
for a moment.
Do you know how easy it is to simply get slipped into a fantasy world, not care anything about the Patriot Act or anything else like that?
Yeah, I know. Most 300 million Americans do it
I know.
daily.
It's pretty awesome. You should talk more about sci-fi and more about trade war.
All right. So I will talk about trade war later on in
Okay.
the month, hopefully. But, I said, number one on why anarchy doesn't mean that we're going to be victims of terrorists because we don't have the blowback from government empire building, government programs to expand their power. But I think that even if we assume that there are going to be bad people out in the world, and there certainly are. There are always going to be people who want to hurt us. That doesn't necessarily mean that anarchy means that we're helpless. With anarchism, people build counter-authoritarian power, counter-power, and there are a lot of things that an ideologically conscious people can take over and then use for defense. Local arrangements could be made that are agreements among equals to protect each other rather than agents of the state protecting the state against inferiors and regarding people as subordinate when they meet them, unless they happen to be one of those people who outrank them. And also, we have to look at what has stopped some terrorist attempts, and it's vigilance, it's response to on the ground response, people breaking out of the role of victim and doing something about it, and it's knowledge, and those are things that a free society and the institutions or organizations that free individuals make can do as well or probably better than a government monopoly.
Hear, hear.
So Tennyson's taking off his shoes over there. He's getting comfortable. He's staying. So we were discussing this earlier. You had your going away party, yet you did not go away. Wait. You got to wait for you to have a microphone before you answer. He's not. He's already gone. He's not even on mic.
Oh. So you should wait. You should have brought up some random topic like the weather or something before, addressing him without a mic. You saw him without a mic.
I thought it wouldn't take you so long to take off your shoes.
Yeah, these shoes are a little
Well,
complicated.
he's got boots.
Yeah.
It takes a moment.
Yeah, what you got to do is, come up with a whole random topic to distract the listeners.
Like The Matrix.
Like The Matrix, like the Baller Matrix.
I actually saw the Terminator a little bit over the weekend.
Yeah? Was it Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines?
It was Terminator 1 and a little bit.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent.
And, I just couldn't help thinking, this really just, I guess, James Cameron's idea of machines, like the Terminator, especially in the first one, like he can run fast apparently, but all his movements are very slow and deliberate. I mean, they're mechanical,
Yes.
but when I think of like a machine,
It makes it
they're
more
fast.
threatening. Yeah,
like
but
machines are fast, they're agile. The Terminator just
Yes.
lumbers along, and then he can't even punch anyone. He just grabs them and throws them into a
there's
wall.
the slow, deliberate movement of the Terminator is designed to be threatening. It's designed to frighten people. The machines, the machine enemy has decided to study what human beings fear. And they fear, for example, the look of a skeleton, the humanoid face in this thing that has no flesh, but it has teeth and bones and can come after them, and is animated by itself. And so that kind of thing really, really freaked out the humans that they were trying to hunt down. And eventually they could clothe them with skin, make them skin jobs and things like that. But anything they could use to enact fear into the enemy, that was what they tried to do.
We got a
call.
Skype. Is that our
We got
guest
Skype.
already?
No way.
No way. But Tennyson, are you sticking around for a little while, or you're off to Never Never Land after this?
No, I'll be around just a little bit. But I'm going to put some more things away, hang out.
Hello, caller?
We got a caller?
Hey, it's Dave D'Amato from the center.
Oh,
Hey,
hi.
how you doing?
Can you hear me,
I'm
Dave?
well. How are you guys?
Excellent, excellent. So this is Tennyson here. I'm calling with this is Thinking Liberty. Darian, say something.
Hey, this is Darian. Dave,
Good.
it's great to have you on the show.
There you go.
Great to be on. I'm a longtime fan.
Really? That's,
Awesome.
That is unusual.
Oh, and look who just walked in. Is it Bosco? I can't see from this angle.
Speaking of dirty Canadians.
Oh, wow. Look, so he's dressed up like a high school teacher. This is his costume now.
All right, so
Your mic's over there.
So we have David D'Amato from Center for Stateless Society on the phone. And David, it's great to have you on. Bosco, why don't you say hello?
Hello.
Is your mic on?
Hey.
Okay.
I think
How
my
you
mic's
doing?
on. Yeah.
All right, there you go.
All right, so Dave, you also write like myself at the Center for Stateless Society. So
Yep.
why don't you give the quick intro on that center?
Sure. First, I want to jump in by answering a question that I was posed earlier. The Terminator did exist within the Matrix for sure. So just want to get that out there.
All right. So is
But
that's your official position on that?
That's my official position, absolutely, and I plan to have a commentary piece out on that pretty soon.
Well, what is the Matrix? That's going to be a whole other thing. So if he exists within
Yep.
the Matrix, answering what the Matrix is going to be a whole bigger thing. But all right, wait,
And
you're talking about something else today.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Center for a Stateless Society is dedicated to the promotion of this idea of market anarchism, that institutions in society should be, as you guys have been talking about, voluntary and consensual and not subject to the coercive monopolies of the state. We believe in, again, what you guys have been talking about within the context of protection, this idea of dual power, ground up, decentralized, fluid institutions that are much better adept to providing for the needs of consumers than these coercive monopolies.
All right. So, Dave, you've been, I guess, studying some of what's going on in the Middle East recently, particularly Egypt. I mean, the situation changes so rapidly, but maybe you could throw in some perspectives on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you said, it's been changing, minute by minute, and, you can barely keep up with the news cycle, but the way today has actually been to me, the most encouraging day, because the decentralized nature of the protests has just continued to grow, and it's spilling from square to square and kind of different centers within Cairo, and they're unable to keep it contained, and it's really encouraging to watch, and it's, I think, reason for hope that just the sheer force of a protest without any violence is enough to make a government take heed.
A quick question for you.
Sure.
When this thing, it all seems to suddenly, it just like shot up on the news at once. They're like, oh, hey, by the way, there's unrest in Tunisia, there's unrest in Egypt, there's, and they're going through all this stuff, and this is happening, that's happening. Was there anything that kind of triggered this? Was there any catalyst, or does this stuff just happen over time, or what's causing this?
I definitely have seen this bubbling for a while, and I think it's been the foment has been right under the surface, just waiting kind of to emerge, because I've been talking a lot lately about the rising costs of food in the world, and these types of things are enough to make people kind of take note and wonder what's going on with the political elites in their countries. And then when you look at a country like Egypt that's basically become a military protectorate of the United States, people are going to look at the causal link and ask what's going on and demand change. And even if it's a peaceful demand, eventually it gets to the point where you have to take note of it. And I think that's what's finally happening now.
Okay, so what's the what's the outcome? Is there an outcome where things could suddenly become a lot more authoritarian? Is there an outcome where things could become a lot better? What are some possibilities here?
Yeah, I think you definitely have a whole bunch of possibilities. I think that one of the things we do want to be clear about when we talk about this, though, is the American media really loves to create this specter of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an institution that has been outlawed in Egypt for decades and renounced violence years ago. So I definitely don't think that that's quite the threat that it's made out to be in the mainstream media in this country. But I don't expect to see anything more authoritarian than the Mubarak government. You can never tell. You don't know what you're going to get but I think the encouraging thing is, like I said, this isn't a violent protest. I mean, this isn't a military coup or storming the palace-style revolution. This is really a people's movement where mostly young people are frustrated and they're asking for change in a nonviolent way. And so I would expect to see something more positive and less authoritarian in Egypt.
All right, a question. Do you think that the people's movement will be satisfied by the placations of the American and the Egyptian government backed by the Americans in the form of Suleiman and maybe somebody else underneath him if he's going to eventually give up power as well? Do you think they could simply be co-opted?
No, I don't think they can be placated by somebody like Suleiman, who was I mean, if I recall, this is a man who was the point man for the Egypt torture program and the rendition program to the United States during the Bush years. So I hope that they're not placated by that, and I don't imagine that would be enough to mollify them. But yeah, I don't think that they're going to be happy until we see kind of this whole infrastructure of the Egyptian elite just say we're not going to participate in the politics anymore, which, you know, that may be unrealistic, that may be kind of a chimerical vision, but you know, that's the hope, and if these numbers of protests continue, I don't see why that couldn't happen.
I mean, being the idealist that I am, I'm thinking always like in terms of it's going to work out the way that I'd like to see it, and I know in my other brain, my more rational brain, it's going to be like, okay, maybe it's probably not going to work out the way that I envision it or hope it's going to work out. And so this whole thing sparked off with the prices increasing, you know, just out of control within a matter of 1 week, actually. Prices just went up over 200%, and then prices continued to go up, and then people simply could not take it anymore, and they took to the streets.
From what I understand, however, that there was more of like immediate, like emotional catalyst in Tunisia, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you've heard, but according to this one thing, Mohamed Bouzizi or Bouzizi, I don't know how it's pronounced, but he an unemployed guy in Tunisia who ended up setting himself on fire after being beat up by cops, and that was sort of the immediate catalyst to Tunisia.
It was big news throughout the entire region, so everybody just took to that as like, this is a rallying point, this is a symbol. And coinciding with the holiday that they had, you know, the police celebration and also the death of a person by torture by the police, all of it seemed to come together at once. That, you know, it's just a confluence of things.
I was trying to remember the complete story, so I was trying to look on Google for it right now, and what came up where I found that information was what is it? Yahoo Answers. Why do Arabs keep setting themselves on fire?
Wow.
And
Yahoo Answers is
did they also,
bottom of the internet.
Yeah, did they also ask how was Babi formed?
No. But
what kind of answers does that have?
Well, it has additional details. It says, is it some kind of Arabian tradition? And the best answer is because they're desperate of our governments who treat them like shite.
Okay.
And then someone actually fills it in and explains about, historical
self-immolation.
Well, yeah, he talks about that, but particularly
like
what happened recently and how the government's screwing them over.
Yeah.
And
but the point I'm trying to make is that the Americans have seen what kind of things they can help. They can ameliorate their own image in terms of populations, even populations of Muslims. After the great tsunami, Islamic countries there, the United States, went and delivered bales of food and water and all these other things, and the image of the United States on the ground seemed to immediately go up. People were approving of the actions of the United States, and they had better image of the United States. If the Americans decide we're just going to start propping up the Egyptians with real food lifts and direct injections of low-priced food and other goods like that, will people simply take that and say, like, okay, this thing may actually continue just as long as the last government did, this new thing where the Americans are giving us these things as reparations or whatever, but they're giving it to us, and that would address the first point that really sparked things off, it seems. So I'm wondering whether that could placate.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, all you.
All right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the way I look at it is, obviously, as an anarchist, I don't want the state to do anything, but I think it'd be a great idea if you took the billions of dollars that, like you said, that we're pumping into their military and to make them a protectorate and a military fiefdom of the U.S. And yeah, why not dedicate that to food? Like I said, you don't want to see the state doing anything because ultimately it's going to create the kinds of unintended consequences or second-tier consequences that you really don't want. But, anything to do that isn't what we're doing now.
Yeah, it's a crutch instead of a broken leg.
I got a
Right.
couple of things in the chat. We here, all James posted meet Asma Mahfouz and the vlog that helped spark the revolution. There's a link to a video. Are you familiar with this at all, David?
Somewhat. I'm not intimately familiar with it, but I know the backstory a little bit.
Could you give a little bit of backstory then?
So you want me to talk about just in terms of? Sorry.
What?
I guess it's
About
just
Asma.
the internet activism that.
Oh, yeah,
had
sure. I
anything
mean,
to do with this.
the way that a lot of these protests have kind of been staged is that people will go on Facebook, and this is even happening in other countries. Iran's not an Arab country, but it's even happening there, where people are creating Facebook groups, and kind of these things are spontaneously erupting, to use the kind of Hayekian formulation, and they're just completely ground up and basically run by the young people and the students in the country. And it's definitely been internet centric.
Okay, you were talking before about how there's these protests and they're not even violent, and that's putting pressure on the state. It seemed that, at least so far, it seems to have been successful in Tunisia, but in Egypt there have been clashes. It's largely believed that the regime or elements of the old regime, perhaps the police, have instigated attacks on anti-Mubarak ralliers. And there's video on Al Jazeera of rocks and Molotovs being thrown at each other. And then some shootings going on, firing from rooftops, police shooting people. And it's just... do you think that it can stay nonviolent, or that it should stay nonviolent when things like violence of this extent is going on against the demonstrators?
Right. I certainly think that the demonstrators have every right in the world to defend themselves, and if those who have their livelihoods wrapped up in the continued existence of this regime, people like members of the government and police, they're going to try to make this violent. And already we've seen that police have dressed as protesters and lit tires on fire and committed acts of violence to try as best they can to make this kind of a public relations nightmare for people who have been, by and large, nonviolent. But yeah, I would definitely say that everyone has a right to defend themselves, but to the extent that they can, this kind of in a way, civil disobedience method, where they're trying to carry out these protests without confrontation, is going to be the best way, because it's really going to undermine the legitimacy in the public eye of this government. So
Yeah.
as much as is possible to keep it nonviolent.
Yeah, it's a difficult position to be in. On the
It
one
is.
hand, you see, the government's using violence, but you certainly have the right to use violence to defend your life. But
Right.
if the more violence that people see, the more violence there is, the more chaotic the situation looks, and then it probably makes politically a crackdown of some sort more viable if there's more violence going on. So it's a really difficult situation these people are in. I mean, part of me wants to say, well, what if some of the military people defected and then started doing a citizens militia arrest of
Right.
some of these people, but then it's like, all right, well then the military is becoming the new power, and when the military doesn't have any kind of explicit anti-authoritarian
Right.
ideas, particularly, there's a danger for military rule. So very difficult politically, this situation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is an extremely fine line to walk, and I do think that no matter what comes out of this, it's not going to be anything like the free market anarchist utopia that we might want, but hopefully it'll be something markedly improved from this Mubarak kind of dictatorship. But yeah, you're right. It's a fine line.
getting back a little bit to Tennyson's statist food drop, if you look at other places where we do massive food injections, food isn't usually the issue in the country. Distribution is a giant issue. I mean, you can take a consolidated amount of food and you can drop it in many places like we currently do in Africa and places around there and different regimes down there. And the issue is the people who seize it and who have the distribution networks are usually warlords or people looking to seize power or things like that. It's not. It kind of like injects a large amount of wealth that can go to whoever has the big enough stick to take it and distribute it.
Right, and that's something to be aware of. But I'm just using the example of the post tsunami food distribution, particularly. The United States went in directly, did it. So they had the army out there with food and MREs and everything else, directly distributing it to the disaster area and the people who were the victims of the disaster. So if the U.S. decides, we're actually going to intervene in this, or say that they could simply say the government of Egypt has asked for our help. We are already in the region. We're simply diverting people who are already going to be going away from Iraq. And what we'd have to do is go in there, promise the people that these problems that they have, we understand, and we will address them. We're going to be doing good by you, because we know we've done bad, and we will try and do better.
There's a lot of we in there.
Yes, because this is I'm saying it as if I'm the president of the United States, because this is exactly how he could do it.
You're pointing guns to fix things, though.
Yes,
it's like don't worry, we're going to use these guns to help you. And it's like, no, dude, pointing guns at people is the problem. Right. No, but these guns are for you.
It's unethical, and it's probably it's certainly not what we prefer, but it is what has worked. And so, it has worked for Americans in the past, and if they use that as an example, then I could see them doing it.
Well, I mean,
okay,
as
you
a
can
method
see it happening.
as a method of securing allegiance,
right? And especially if the forming Egyptian government or whatever is going to replace the Mubarak American-backed crony. If they need some sort of support from the Americans, which they eventually do, they'll probably need recognition from the Americans. Then they could simply make a deal. So that's how I see the resolution of this. That's the denouement here. They're going to make a deal.
I'll send them a letter saying that I'll recognize their passports.
So there you go.
Dear Egypt, I recognize the passports of anybody coming out of Egypt who has something written on a piece of paper.
Says yes.
Love, Bosco.
You can now travel freely into Bosco's place in Trenton. So it's like, it says you were free to come to Trenton.
Your offer is rejected.
Okay, they're going to have to go to Petopia then.
Oh, boy. I mean, it's another interesting thing about what's going on in Egypt is if you look at what the army has its hooks into. The army in Egypt is unique in that they had this very large army, and they were worried about people leaving the army and flooding the job market, so they took the army and kind of involved it in all kinds of stuff, like food production and, all sorts of weird things. So they're really like they've got their fingers in manufacturing, and they're kind of like the big consolidated mob type thing over there, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that's an important feature of this too, I think, because you have a situation where, like you said, the state is ingratiated, especially the military, with so many areas of life to try to create this idea of dependence. And if they can make the whole economic system center on the military and other bureaucracies and state departments, then they can make people think that there's no way to extricate themselves from this, and my family's dependent on this, so I don't want to take part in the protests. And that's kind of the situation of everyone's dependent on it, and that's exactly what they want.
Okay, so what would let's say democratic revolution in Egypt mean for market anarchists? Let's say there's a revolution, they create a functioning parliament, maybe something similar to U.S. Constitution, or like an Anglo-American type democratic republic. What would this mean for market anarchists, just in general, if this event were to take place?
Yeah, that's curious too.
Yeah, I think the primary thing that it would mean is in a country like Egypt right now, the opportunities for even educating about something like market anarchism or any kind of anarchism are going to be scrutinized. And I think if you saw something like a kind of constitutional structure, then you might have more opportunities for the dissemination, at least, of the view, and then you can, kind of grow from there. Because really, to have a real market anarchist revolution, that's something that's about education, and it starts there, and it starts with changing people's minds about, what they think the functions of the state are and ought to be, and the role of voluntary associations in society and things like that. So I think education is probably going to be the biggest feature that maybe would come out of something like a democracy in Egypt.
Okay, so you're thinking that a democratic revolution might relieve pressure on society so that both the idea of anarchism can be spread and perhaps the organizations of civil society have more room to grow without the disruption.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because right now in a country like Egypt, those intervening spaces between things that are completely dominated or largely dominated by state control are very small cracks. And, even in our country, the intervening spaces are small, but they're probably bigger than they are in Egypt. So that's a good opportunity, because it's kind of like a wedge. As soon as you can get that wedge in there, and this is the idea of, agorism, is just that you can fit that wedge in those small cracks and hopefully divide the power of the state and have social power overtake.
Hey, another question. I don't know of any particular market anarchist commentators from Egypt or the surrounding area. But I've seen a couple of interviews or articles from Egyptians who are more social anarchists. Have you read any of those, and what's your take on them?
I haven't seen too much of the social anarchists in the Middle East. I haven't read too many of them, but I think that what we were talking about earlier, when in these countries, the question really is about social justice, and you really do have a problem with distribution. And so people in these areas are definitely going to be prone to picking up on the ideas thrown out by social anarchists, because they're frustrated with these kind of elite oligopolies and monopolies that are just dominating every in Egypt, for example, the tax rate between those people who we might consider middle class and those extremely rich people is exactly the same. And, we're not for any taxes, but at least these people that benefit so much from the state corporate kind of cartelized system that they have going on there, they're seen by the rest of the public as this kind of cloistered elite, and they just kind of sit behind their barricades and feed at the trough of this kind of corporate economy. And so, yeah, any type of social anarchism is going to be huge in places like this, as it has been in, for a long time in Eastern Europe and South America. It's always going to take hold there.
All right. Real quick, we just had a comment in the chat room from All James, our friend James Tuttle, and at Twitter, the address is Ayad El Baghdadi, I guess. It's IYAD_ELBAGHDADI. And he says that's an Austrian libertarian commentator on Egypt. So that might be something to check out. I'm not familiar with it.
Yes, I was mentioning. Remember when we had the first rally outside the Egyptian embassy in New York? So Darren and I were there, and I recommended that we simply go off and do a collection of all the communist and socialist newspapers that were there, because they have a lot of written commentary on this entire situation.
Business.
It's a huge thing for them. I mean, this is their moneymaker, and they hate that thing. So I guess they're conflicted, but. There's also
Wait, hold on. Who's got a lot of commentary on what?
the social anarchists and communist anarchists, especially the Avakians, the Avakian cult people.
Right.
But they have a lot to say on this. I even saw somebody in the subway, looked over their shoulder, saw them reading some communist anarchist newspaper thing, commentary on it. It's just randomly. They didn't. They
Well,
seem
it's big news. Like the one thing I like to follow, MRZine,
yeah.
is they're all over it. There are a lot
Yeah.
of political cartoons coming out of like Brazil, Venezuela, talking about the same sort of thing.
Right, and it's like they have really been on top of it, and they have come up with something of their own analysis and their own ways to address this. So
I think it's mainly the food thing. Like I think I
Yeah.
said on the last show, like
they
really
propaganda
like,
part
for
yeah.
some reason Marxists live for food shortages. It's
Yeah.
like here comes another shortage and the prices are going up because of capitalism.
Right.
Well, okay. I mean, do they want to do a comparison here for starvation and famine? It's like
No,
That's what up, you guys. It's like,
like-
yeah, Marxists love that.
it's like okay,
Deprivation.
the West with their starvation. Okay, one Marxist regime's a billion. I don't know. It's
the starvation gap.
that's why
It's a
it's
starvation
well,
gap.
that'd be state authoritarian Marxists.
Yeah.
There's some people who use Marxist analysis in
Oh, yeah.
less totalitarian fashion,
Of course.
but not the evacuum.
yeah, but we're
cult.
talking.
They don't get any.
Yeah,
love.
we're talking in the Marxist sense. We'd say actually existing Marxism rather than say the
Right,
Marxism
right.
of the papers.
This is why I love reading like all kinds of Russian stuff. I really enjoy, but I especially love reading like the Russian anarchists because man, they got their like priorities straight. They recognized a long time ago that it's food. So you read like
Yeah.
Kropotkin, and he's like, grow more food, better cooperatively win, and that's like his whole strategy. And the funny thing is, it's
Right.
using this like effectively really old technology and stuff like that, and he's just like, when technology reaches a certain level that people can sustain themselves, it's like
Right.
there's going to be nothing other than anarchism. It's kind of interesting.
Right. Yeah, and
Singularity,
actually,
here we
that's a
come.
great. I think that's a great point because Kropotkin has always been one of my favorites of the social anarchists for just that reason. He concentrates on this idea that this really is about social well-being for normal people. Normal people that go to work are not talking about the philosophical things that maybe we are at the center or right here tonight. They're concerned with what are we going to eat? How is my family going to eat? And the state's whole game is restricting the supply side. That's their whole game. And they've done it to enormous success so they can take tolls at every turn. And so I think it's good that if we see social anarchist literature in the Middle East, then it can just erode at the orthodoxy. And then you'll have this influx of all different strains of anarchism, and we can get a real conversation going. So to me, that's going to be the strength of this.
Yeah. Wow, I totally figure out what. Oh yeah, so Thinking Liberties had quite a few talks on gardening, so folks might want to check that out because after all, if you can grow your own food, you don't have to rely on the warlords until they come and steal your food.
Yes.
Grow
You
your
can
own.
grow your own food, then
Food.
you won't have. You'll be able to survive the coming price inflations. So
I was actually having I had a couple of interesting discussions with coworkers lately, but I was having one, and I was talking about hierarchy and how I try to avoid it as much as I possibly can. He's
get
like,
back
well,
in your place.
he was like, well, you can't possibly have that because you need important people to handle things like important things like food distribution. And that's what I said. It's like, for the love of God, please no. Like, let's please distribute it and let's make it a little bit, fail safe. And let's try to keep it from having a central point of weakness, especially with things like food distribution. I don't know why you would trust a very few select people to deal with things like how you intake energy that allows you to live.
Well, they'll eat well. The people in charge of the food.
And everything else will spoil.
I think maybe we need to get more people involved in studying like distributed computing systems to see
Yeah.
that single point of failure is a bad thing.
Oh, it's terrible.
So redundancy. Here we go.
Trackerless gardening.
Yes.
All right, so David, I guess maybe we'll shift gears here. Yeah, all right. So we're talking about
Let's
anarchism, market anarchism in food now. So you were mentioning a little bit about the way that the way that a actual market anarchist revolution or market anarchist achievement could be made, which was primarily on education and building counterpower. Do you want to elaborate a little bit about some of your ideas on that?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, specifically about the things we're talking about with just basic necessities of life, and we're talking about how you don't want to have this central point of weakness. I think I would be, if I were talking to Egyptians or anyone in the Arab world, I would definitely want to emphasize that you should be skeptical of these quote unquote important people that we're talking about, and just in the same way that we have problems with information being spread through or disseminated through the economy, where you have a planned economy, those same information problems will plague any centralized system. So if you want lower prices and you want institutions that will serve consumers, you kind of need to have diffusely located power in society. And I think that's probably the message that hopefully will come out of this.
All right. So what are some of the recent things you've done at Center for a Stateless Society? Some of your recent topics. Obviously, we're talking about political events in the Middle East, but what are some of the other things you've been up to?
Well, on that topic, I just finished a column that should be out shortly about this high-speed rail that the president and the vice president were talking about today, and how that's supposedly going to magically create jobs. So, again, Kropotkin talked about this, the idea that public works projects could feed workers, and he was very skeptical of this because he knew that any type of public works project is going to be full of kind of sweetheart contracts and no bid contracts for politically connected big business. So that's what's up next, pretty much. And then I actually had a column on the Mises Institute's website. Speaking of the Mises Institute and the Austrian School, I had a column on the Mises Institute's website today about decentralized law. So all of these things.
Wait, so you're saying FDR was a bad president? Because that's what I'm hearing on the public works things. I just want to be sure.
He was the baddest president, right? It's like
you got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, that's good to know.
He was ready to
What would
roll.
Anthony Gregory say about that?
I don't know. I'm not sure if Anthony Gregory is pro or anti FDR. That's almost certain to get us, like, if he hears this podcast, a boatload of comments, maybe even a phone call, maybe some hate mail.
Yeah, Anthony Gregory, Poe FDR. So.
Speaking of screwing up what you're saying,
as we know from Bosco's song, though, actually, FDR would not get far if he'd be where Anthony are.
that's some good English.
There you go.
You actually conflated an excellent term. I think especially when
Who are
you're
you
dealing
pointing
with
at?
you, Darian. Sorry.
Darian over that
I
way.
think especially when you're dealing with anarchism, where we've got all these terms that people throw around, then people make new terms because the other terms were confusing, like, capitalist and voluntarist and all this different sort of stuff. You actually said Marxist before.
Marxist?
Yeah, which is like a
Marxist?
combination of like Marxist
Market
and market. So
Yeah.
Why
I think
did I
I'm gonna
say that?
I think I'm gonna start calling myself a Marxist,
Yeah,
and
that's-
people will either one get really ticked off or two be confused and be like, oh, it's somebody who's for markets. I'm for markets. I'm a Marxist.
I think it sounds
Okay.
like you're for marks, like
Yeah.
like marking things.
like marking.
You're like Jigglypuff then. So, yeah, but it reminds me of market socialism. Mises is market socialism. So I guess if you could be a Marxist, marketist, I don't know.
Why don't?
what
well,
about a Marxist-ist, one who is in favor of Marxists?
what you got to do if the term gets too confusing is either put post, neo, or paleo
Yes.
in front of it. So I'm a post Marxist, or I'm a
I'm a post-paleo Marxist.
Yeah, we're fighting with the neo branch of our thing.
I'm on-
They're a bunch of trot splinter groups.
I'm on a post-paleo Marxist diet right now.
Paleo
You
Marxist
only eat
diet.
other people's food. This is how it works.
It is our people's
You
food.
you only eat grains stolen from peasants.
You only eat food that other people aren't currently using.
The political method of eating.
Yes, there you go.
Diet and politics. I mean, it's funny, but sometimes there is a political element to people's diets. I mean, certainly people who try to eat, eco-friendly or people who eat locally. I would say, there's a political element to that. What kind of, what kind of world you want to promote, I guess, in that. So, there are political diets out there.
According to Urban Dictionary, Marxism
We're all screwing up.
is already taken.
What does it mean?
This is a seemingly far-fetched scenario in which there are no rational choices to resolve it and no rational explanation for how it came into being in the first place.
Where the hell did that come from?
Huh.
I don't
Mark
know.
it. Use it in a sentence.
The professor never taught from the book. Then his midterm was on nothing but the book, so 95% of the class failed. Oh, wait. I guess that's an example of Marxism.
Oh, okay, I see.
I was probably
know.
named after some dude named Mark.
Number 2 is a religion surrounding, in parentheses, the almighty Mark Payne.
Mark Payne, okay. I thought it was going to be
And-
Mark Paul Gosler.
What's this last one? Number 3, the greatest religion on earth. You seem surprised, but how can the only religion where the God actually existed be judged as being bad? I don't
Thank
know.
you, Urban Dictionary.
Thank you, Urban
All
Dictionary.
right, so
All right.
David,
All right,
what's your
wait.
take on Urban
Now-
Dictionary?
Now look up Rusty Venture.
No, we're not looking up anything Tennyson says. We are, however, going to get David's take on Urban Dictionary. So what do you
All right,
think?
Go ahead.
I'm a big fan of Urban Dictionary. I'm a big fan of anything that's open source and bottom up, and that's where I think you're. Notwithstanding some of these definitions, I think oftentimes that's where you're going to get the best information, and that's actually
it's-
what the price mechanism.
It's
in a
bottom
free
up.
market-
He said
It's
bottom
totally
up.
bottom up. You should look up bottom up on Urban Dictionary.
I was
Now, can you give a
afraid
thumbs
to,
up to
actually.
that?
I was looking
Yes.
it up in hopes that we could have a unique tag, like Markism, if no one had used it on Google, but that was a fail. And on Yahoo Answers,
Oh, no.
someone writes communism, fascism, capitalism, and Markism.
Yes.
I'm having trouble understanding the meanings of these terms, and I'm wondering if someone could provide an easy and understandable definition of each. And
All
someone
right,
just
File,
ignores
that's all you.
someone just ignores that he misspelled Marxism.
You.
I
What
see.
about Marxist?
I looked up Marcus on Google right here. The first hit
Marcus
that is
Brody?
is Prairie Pundit. It says Obama's Marxist tax plan.
Well, there you go. That's what I'm against. I'm against Obama's Marxist tax plan.
If Obama's for it, I'm against it.
Exactly.
He's
Like
referencing
chopping off
Fox
the
News
hands
and
of
Bill
thieves.
O'Reilly and all this. It's his It's his damn Marcus plan. This is a third link. Amazon customer discussions. Obama sucks. A commie Marxist.
Okay.
There's also Marxism.net, which looks like some sort of DIY website. I don't know.
Well, okay then. Moving on.
This sounds like the stuff I cite to tick off my my neocon coworkers. Speaking of which, there was this C4SS article, I think.
Get neocon coworkers.
Oh yes,
That's very fascinating. to me.
There was one that was talking about immigration, and I think this was on C4SS. It might not have been, but there was one talking about immigration, talking about how a great solution to a lot of the world's problems with poverty would be allowing people to immigrate to the U.S. and it would solve X amount of problems.
Could
with
probably solve a lot of the war problems as well.
Exactly. So it was this article about how immigration should be laxened if not effectively removed, and that would have X amount of effect on poverty. That's one that I printed out and left on my coworker's desk. I was like, oh, here, I found this for you. It sounded like a topic you're interested in. Enjoy.
It's like, this is something that you agree with, yes?
Yes. You're always talking about immigrants, right?
I mean, that's how it is. You're talking about free trade and prosperity and
freedom.
immigrants. You know,
That's what
freedom.
means. Freedom to be geographically where you want to be.
Yeah, freedom.
That's not geographically correct.
Yes, it's freedom where I want you to be.
The freedom to do what I tell you to do.
Freedom not to fund the military. Freedom.
Yeah.
All right, so David, we are running towards the end of this hour. What do you think is a good thing for people who are interested in freedom to do? Like just like just a suggestion for people who are interested in freedom. Like, what can they do to be more free?
Take their clothes.
What can you do to be more free? I would say do whatever it is that you want to do without subjecting yourself to the real possibility of getting arrested. Live your life and form your businesses and form your relationships like you would. And this is ultimately what's going to be meant by kind of the counter economy and dual power and all these ideas that we have to represent these counter institutions. But I think more than that, educate yourself so that you know what it is that you're going for, and so that you have a goal in mind for what your vision of society is, where you can really feel comfortable telling other people about it and spreading the idea that this may be the way things are, but it's not predetermined and it doesn't necessarily have to stay that way.
And a good place to educate yourself would probably be Center for a Stateless Society, C4SS. Am I right?
Yeah, c4ss.org. And there's some articles there that you'll find by David D'Amato. Also at the Mises Institute, there's a really interesting one that they put up there. What was it called again?
Something about anarchy and the law. No, I don't even know.
It's something anarchy. It's just yell anarchy, and it's a whole paragraphs of the word anarchy repeated in different font sizes and all caps. And it's called "Is Life?" It's called "Is Life Without the State Always Chaos?" That was the title of the article there. So yes, of course, donate to C4SS. We have a fundraiser that's coming up there, and eventually I'll write for C4SS as well. I think maybe, I don't know, because it's a pretty cool place, and I could stitch a word together. So
You could stitch a word or
Do it.
two.
What
Get in
word
there.
would that be?
Gotta
Would
get
it be
in there.
Marxist?
yes, it would be Marcus. There you go.
Paleo Marcus.
Paleo Marxist?
Neo-paleo Marcus.
Post-paleo neo-Marxist? Did you say federal?
Yes, he said Neo-paleo federal Marcus.
Oh, okay. All right.
So he added that there. All right.
All right, David, what are some other good web resources for educating yourself? Can you think of off the top of your head?
Web resources. I really like the Independent Institute. Where else? The Foundation for Economic Education and their magazine, The Freeman, edited by one of our advisory panel members, Sheldon Richman. It's always a great place to stop by. Where else? The Future of Freedom Foundation. All of these places are frequent stops. I go to InfoShop a lot for the more of the social anarchist take on things going on in the world. All of these are great resources. They're going to give you the kind of views that you're not going to get in the mainstream media outlets, and you can play around with these and figure out where you come down. But the point is that you're engaging and you're figuring out that there's not just this one dogma out there. There's not just this kind of Republican Democrat statist orthodoxy that controls the entire ideological spectrum.
All right, and we were talking about Egypt and the Middle East before. Is there anywhere that you were going specifically for news on that?
I actually go to Al Jazeera English a lot, and so I get a lot of my news from there. I go to BBC just in terms of getting like the hard news, and then like I said, I'll go to those kind of other more ideologically driven sources to get the take on it that I'm trying to grapple with and figure out where I come down on things. So but for the hard news, I tend to go outside the U.S. just because I want to kind of see a different perspective. So I like BBC and I like Al Jazeera.
All right, well, David, thanks a lot for being on. This is David D'Amato.
Okay.
He writes at Center for a Stateless Society, C4SS.org.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you guys so much for having me. You're a lot of fun, and I've been listening for a long time, so this is great.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent.
All right, well,
That's very unusual, and we're meeting people who've been listening for a very long time, and like, wow, those actually exist.
I want to meet the guy who's like, I've been listening for a very long time, and then just leaves it at that.
Oh, well,
Like,
okay.
like maybe he's just taking notes on how much he hates us. I mean, that'd be.
So-
I'm a long-time
No, this is
listener,
great.
Tennyson.
Yeah.
Would you like to hear my complaints?
Maybe later in the private chat room. So Sam, a long-time listener, first-time caller, and he probably won't be a last-time guest. Thank you for calling, David D'Amato. And so
Thank
we're
you
going to
guys
be out.
so much.
We're going to go to break.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna go to break because Bosco looks like he's about to set something on fire over there. So how about it? Stick around. We've got more Thinking Liberty coming up, and it's gonna be bombastic.
Take your.
Don't you try to find me anymore. I wanna stay outside of your world this time. Throw it all away. That was one mistake I never thought you'd make. Once you're off the path that has nowhere. Close the door and think a while. You were all alone, staring into nothingness. Your eyes are turned to stone. Return to yesterday. There's no easy way. Once you walked away, but now you stay. Faded out of memories, moments that you took, locked away inside a box. Never thought you would fall down and back, disappearing in your own tracks. Don't you think you had enough of that?
Look for ways to build freedom in your life and go for it. This is Thinking Liberty.
Go for it.
Goal for it.
Go for it.
You were hitting red there.
I'm in the red zone.
I wasn't fast enough to bring down the mic a little bit.
You
Oh,
couldn't
well.
handle it.
No, I wasn't quick enough.
All right.
Too much power.
So it was it over 9,000?
Sure, why not? I can make up a scale that's over 9,000.
Okay. All right. So Bio, you had an interesting situation on your face.
On my face, in my eye. Yeah, it's not that exciting, but everyone wants to talk about it because I posted a image on Facebook. Lori put it.
It's on Facebook now. If the listeners really want to, I can always post it to the Thinking Liberty page.
We should. Since
I'll
we're
do it
talking about
That'll
right
be
now.
your
We'll do it right
that'll be like for the cast photos. That'll be like Biles.
that'll be mine. So it's
A Lansing?
no, it's not a Lansing.
This is
All right.
terrible.
It's so anyway, I there's these people are familiar with styes.
Yeah.
Basically a pimple in the eye.
Right.
Right. Well, there's these things I had never heard of them before, but I was familiar with what it was. But it's called like a Charlson, CHALAZION.
Sounds like some kind of Marcus shit.
Maybe it is. I mean,
You can't say that on the air.
but
So spell that again.
CHALAZION.
Okay, let me look it up.
And so it's like you've got these oil ducts that secrete like an oil for your eyes, and occasionally one can get clogged, and there's really no rhyme or
Especially if you're a
reason.
cyborg.
If you're cyborg, I suppose.
That would fix that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would think that. Well, no, I mean you could still
Come
get
on,
clogged.
they can't even do autocorrect, right? They're never gonna fix themselves.
The cyborgs make some good stuff. You've written what Kevin Carson writes, right?
Yeah. I read his emails all the time, so he's
You
very
read his
funny.
Emails? What are
Yeah.
you, the Patriot Act?
Yes. The Patriot Act is reading by itself. Oh my gosh.
Skynet plus the Patriot Act. That sounds like a bad
The
idea.
Patriot skies.
So what happened here?
So I've got
Christina
this
Aguilera
thing
screwed up.
on my
Yep.
left eye that eventually, as of like yesterday, was about the size of a pea, and it was affecting my vision, and that's typical because it puts downward pressure onto your cornea, and can make your vision blurry or whatever. And so I was getting tired of it, and it looked awful. But the only solution is to get surgery. That you go in, they flip your eyelid inside out. They put like a couple millimeter slice in your eye where it's at, and then use like a micro melon baller to like scoop that crap out.
Wow.
And that's the only way to do anything about it. Or wait, and you can wait up to 2 years for it to heal itself. And I didn't want to wait for 2 years, so I put this really hot compress on my eye for about an hour, and then I went in the bathroom with like a sewing needle or pin and pulled my eye lash like to the side, and then went from an angle, so like perpendicular to the eye, so it wouldn't puncture it, and just put a small hole in it, and then cleaned it out.
That's
and so
Pine
now,
Barrens medicine.
and so now it's like it's less swollen. I can kind of see out of it. It's still a little cloudy, but that's because like I guess the eye takes a little while to reform. So
That's
so it's red and swollen, but not nearly as bad looking as it was before.
All those agreements that Bile made where he told people, like, don't worry, I won't tell you where the bodies are. Cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. They're all void now. He's telling people everything.
And the sad part is, I'm in the bedroom at the time when he's doing this. And I'm playing Angry Birds, and at any rate, I could hear like fussing in the bathroom, and I know what he's doing because he had come to me earlier asking me for like a pin, so I knew where this was going to go. And then eventually it's quiet. I heard something drop. I thought maybe he had passed out, so I had called him. I was like, "Hey, you all right?" He's like, "I'm fine, I'm fine." And then it's all quiet for about 2 minutes, and then he comes like zombie walking into the bedroom with his needle sticking out of his eye, looking at me, very proud of the work he's
because
done.
the flesh is like it's bulbous, right? And it's even though it's been drained, it's still in that shape. So there's a couple millimeters between the back of the eyelash or the eyelid, that's the word, and the front where the this bulbous thing is sticking out.
Right.
So the needle, I accidentally let go while I was moving it around to drain it, and it just stuck there. So I was like, I can walk into the bedroom and freak out Lori.
It's like, this would be cool. This is the kind
So
of
I
thing
took a
that you
picture of it
do.
with my cell phone and I posted it up on Facebook.
And then
It's
he
a good
figured,
picture,
well, he's
though.
got the needle, now both nipples are done, and he's working on a few other things.
Oh gosh. Well,
Those
you're
don't drain.
you're okay though.
I guess so. I mean, my eye could get infected. I did disinfect the
needle.
pin before I
Yeah.
used it, but
With fire.
not with fire, with alcohol.
Do you have a preference to the photo? Do you want the edited photo or the
Put
giant
up
photo?
both. I mean, come on, no skimping.
I'm
This
just
is
making
like New
sure.
Hampshire,
I'm
open,
just making
open
sure.
government, open thinking liberty.
Open mouth.
Okay, I'm working on
Speaking of which, did you guys hear about that in New Hampshire?
Open mouth in New Hampshire.
Some of the Free State Project members, our great friend Seth Cohen, who's been elected to
Yeah, it definitely has an open mouth. That's for sure.
he
Oh, nice. Classy.
him and some other of the techie, I guess, I think they're all Free State Project members, but members of the New Hampshire House have got this new open government initiative
Right.
where all the bills and stuff that get submitted are in quote unquote pipe delimited friendly files or whatever. I
Okay.
forget the exact terminology. It was a little strange, but there's been a couple articles. It was up on Slashdot too about these Free State Project members who are advocating open government and so much that they're making it easy for other third parties to scrape all that information.
I can imagine Dennis Goddard's
cool.
going to be all over that Slashdot article then. He probably submitted it.
Maybe. I'm not sure. It talked up the FSP a little bit more than it should have, considering it really had nothing to do with the article.
That's very Dennis Goddard.
I really like the open government theory. I try to advocate that to other people as much as I can because, it's even if you don't really want to get into the political argument, you can be like, well, things should be more open. We should have access to all the laws and the language, the documents, and we should know what people's operating procedures are and stuff like that. And usually you can get people to agree. And then the part that I sometimes leave out if I don't want to talk about it is like, because if people knew that crap, they would just be outright appalled and it would fold up tomorrow. But, I'm saying it should be open.
Yeah, we would only hope that would happen. But then again, I think people are kind of like, whatever. Even no matter what they do, how they get it done, or whatever it is, people are going to be like, it's being done, and I got to go to work.
There's nothing I can do about it.
It's,
It's you can't fight City Hall. You can't change the system.
It's like
just,
it's
always burn it down.
8:45, dude. It's 8:45. What are we gonna do?
dude, the liquor
Actually,
stores
it's 9:16.
are gonna close
I know.
soon. What are you thinking? Why are you worrying about this?
Without that, how are we gonna fuel your revolution? Huh?
Revolution of beer.
Exactly. Revolutions before 9 o'clock, because they will close on the week.
It's amazing how pervasive that idea is. Like, I mean, I've had many people, and that's their clincher argument is like, yeah, well, but what are you gonna do about it? I mean, it's the system. And I'm like,
That's not an argument.
yeah, I'm like, okay, so your argument is like, I'm gonna punch you in the stomach, and it's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? Because it's the stomach punch. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's how it goes. It's like it's too expensive. Let's not do it.
Well, I mean, it's certainly one person can't change everything, but you can start making some changes in your life.
See,
that-
but the thing is,
But you
person
can try.
one person really can. Like, I look at like major stuff that's happened, and there's more and more crap that I know, like the one or two people who are really into it, and then I see it in the news, I see it on NPR, or I see it happening in a small town or something like that, and it really does come down to like a couple of motivated people. So you can say one person can't really change the world. Well, some person can invent the disruptive technology that just changes everything and makes one thing impossible to do. Like I was having a cell phone argument with somebody talking about whether or not cell phones should be used in the used in the classroom and stuff like that. And they were mad at me. They were pretty livid, talking pretty fast. And what I'm thinking in the back of my mind is like, well, you know what? I don't have to win this argument. Do you know why I don't have to win this argument? I was like, because we have cell phones in the schools. We have cell phones in the prisons. We have cell phones overthrowing nations. I was like, I'm winning this argument everywhere else. It's like, I don't really need to do much to justify my position to you because I'm kicking your butt in the game of world. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say.
That game is unfair.
Is unfair.
And needs to be regulated.
It's
Yes.
It's like risk.
Good luck.
So they're using their cell phones and the flicker.
Yes, in the flickering light.
That's a reference to something that people might not actually understand here. So
It's a Neely Comics reference.
yes, it is.
It's
So-
the we have plenty to defend.
And that's right.
And
People aren't going to know what that is.
Okay,
either.
sorry. It's the Neely Comics open mic America Now
Yes.
song, which is fantastic. These tongue-in-cheek 30-second
Go
songs.
to YouTube.
Yeah, where they talk about the craziest topics. This one is a guy who's advocating building a giant wall
Around
the
the
United
entire
States.
country.
Build a wall around us all. Build a wall. And then the chorus is,
He's
"I'm
not
not
kidding."
kidding. Yeah, for real. Build a wall."
Well, okay then. Yeah, it's definitely something that there needs to be motivation for, and I don't want to be like aim low, but sometimes people have unrealistic expectations.
Below the belt.
It's like always aim below the belt.
There you
but advice to live by.
I think
But-
of
From
that
Thinking
SNL
Liberty.
sketch where they have the dating service that's called Lowered Expectations.
Isn't that Mad TV?
Is that Mad TV?
That's Mad TV.
Oh, all right.
Oh, that probably wasn't as funny.
Lowered expectations.
But,
There you go.
But you're not gonna just go out there and yell your head off and like talk to a bunch of people, and then everything's going to fall overnight. Even when you look at, say, the Egyptian uprising, it's not complete. It might be a major step towards greater freedom, but it didn't start with just one person putting anything on the internet. There was organizing or just underground activity for a while. These things don't come out of nowhere. It's the old cliche is that a journey of however many miles it is this time starts with a single step.
Right.
But that's true. And there's another cliche.
Cliché?
What?
You sound like you said cliché.
No, I said cliche.
Okay.
So, like
rewind
you
that.
see it in like insurrectionary anarchist literature. The secret is to really begin, but the secret is to begin at the beginning. If you think that you can shortcut things, sometimes you can, but you always have to have a basis.
If you think you can
what's
do
going
that
on.
consistently and always shortcut everything, that's not going to work for
Well,
you.
yeah, but I mean, work at it. Work your butt off. You're
You got to work at those shortcuts.
Your talk makes me think of War and Peace, where Tolstoy is talking about people have analyzed revolutions in countries and they've analyzed these other things, and historians usually say, well, it's because of these great men, and it's these two
Right.
or three people that had these ideas.
The great men
Men,
theory of
like
history.
the people in this room.
Exactly. It's like the Napoleon that decided to do this that got it done. He's like, well, they're ignoring the fact that it's groups of people and the environment was ready for change. And I'm reading all this. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. And then it's like towards the end, it's like, and God wanted it to happen. I'm like, oh no.
Okay.
Oh, where are we going with this?
All
It's
right,
like,
so-
and it was providence.
We've
It's
got
divine
to
providence.
persuade God that this is a good
Persuade
thing.
God. No, I think I look at the stuff that I
been
do
done before.
to forward the things that I believe in. I look at the stuff other people do, and I'm not overly concerned. I think we're getting there, mostly because we're kind of working our butts off. So the people that like I really have argument with, like the people who think immigration is the worst idea ever, it's like, well, for every one of you that watches something on TV and then comes into work and complains, it's like there's at least one person like me who will go out there and actively feed people, actively try to do whatever it takes to get people citizenship, network, all these different things. Like there's people actually taking actions as opposed to your people, which are just complaining.
Yeah, but you're a communist,
Apparently,
which ends all conversations.
I am a Marxist.
You're a
You're a
He's
Marxist.
getting it in. He's getting it in.
Bosco, what you were saying there reminds me of one quote that's often on radgeek.com in the like revolving quote section. I don't know if he still has it, but it was
Is
there.
epigraph.
It was from, I think, Proudhon's general idea of the revolution in the 19th century.
That's
And-
properties theft, right?
Yeah, that's everything that he ever wrote. 3 words, no
Sum it all up.
explanation
To win
needed.
every argument. Proudhon says property is theft. Therefore, your argument is invalid.
3 rings to rule whatever, and 1 argument to win them all. But he's saying that in addition to all this legislative parliamentary maneuvering, there were people from on the ground making new relations, making new networks. He didn't use quite that language, but that's basically what he's saying, and that this was an exciting thing.
Zach brings up a loaded term, propaganda of the deed. I really love the term. It has some nasty connotations. People think I'm going to try to like mail bomb the Pope or something when I use those words, so I tend not to use them. But I mean, I like the underlying concept. You take the violent connotation of it. I'm even getting to the point where I can't read people who even write in too much of an argumentative or violent fashion. Like I bought that Bakunin book. What is it? God in the State. And it's seriously like 60 pages long. It's an essay. And I got halfway through it and I was just like, dude, I can't do this. I'm like, there's just so much hate, like so much hatred for God and so much hatred for the state that I'm like, I couldn't do it. After
Warms
a while.
my heart.
I don't know. Some people can like just consume that stuff and breathe fire, but not me.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read quite that much Bakunin, but I like what I've read.
It's kind of tough. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say the man makes a bad argument. He makes a great argument, but his argument is kind of like getting hit with a 2x4 with a nail in it. Like, it just like keeps coming, and it's over and over. And it's like, yes, as I proved here, this is false. Ergo, this is false. And I'm like, I got it, dude. I got it. I'm with you. It's cool. You can make this stop.
It will never stop.
Wow. Bakunin was quite the bombastic man.
That's true. Oh, we have somebody who loves hate, by the way. Somebody by the name, who we know this is, Baron von Rape, which is that's a pretty crazy name right there. I'll give you that.
All right. I don't know. What do you think of the name Baron von Rape? Is it cool to have that in the chat room?
Well, I guess it depends who's reading it.
It's
And,
in all capitals. It could be an acronym.
What is it? What,
really
what could
angry
it
person expressing.
Yes, that's
themselves.
exactly what it is.
Yes.
There we go. So now we have a solution, so no longer need to be offended by it. We also have Zach Fix in there, and I have to get a resume to Zach Fix. It's something else. I'm working on it, and I've had a really weird couple of days. I'm like, I actually got to get this in. So,
Are you applying for a job at Fix Brewing?
I am applying for a job not at Fix Brewing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I would just say, like, if anybody out there wants to hire Tennyson to brew beer, he puts his finger in every bottle and contaminates it. I'm
There you
just
go.
saying that, just to help you get jobs in the
like-
future.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't be working for any alcohol places. I don't drink.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Then you don't have to worry about you cutting into some of the product.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Yeah, and there'd be no time taken off at all. So,
I think while we're talking about Zach Brewing, I think Zach Brewing needs to do a special reissue of baker's yeast and orange juice in a gallon milk jug shine. Maybe filtered through a piece of white bread. Maybe. I'm just saying, if you want to class it up a little bit. But I think that definitely needs to be a Zach Brewing.
it's straight over
Zach
my
Fix
head.
Brewing
I have
release.
no idea what you're talking about now. So,
Oh, well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, next time you're at the supermarket,
okay.
you should get yourself a jug of orange juice.
Okay.
And get yourself a packet of baker's yeast.
Okay.
Right? And pour yourself a couple of Miller Rosas with the orange juice. Right.
All right.
That's Miller Light and orange juice, which you obviously drink for breakfast. Okay. pour yourself a few of those, and then when you've got some space left in the milk jug,
Okay.
right, put in your baker's yeast. Shake it all up, and squeeze it every once in a while to see if it's fermenting, and leave it under your bed until it gets boozy.
Okay.
Win.
Under the bed, you say?
Under the bed, yes.
Huh.
Or behind the radiator, or, any place the CO is not going to find it.
Okay, the CO. Yeah, he doesn't mean carbon monoxide. So it's like I hear CO, I think of lots of things. So,
Oh, actually, we've got don't forget the balloon airlock. Yes, that's important. You need a way of letting some of that air out.
oh, okay.
Or you could not, and you could learn what happens when you don't do that. It could become discovery science.
Yeah, this is science right here. This is
Could we make an explosive with enough orange juice and soap? I don't
Probably.
Probably.
There you go.
Could make
Win.
could make napalm with that. Darren, what's your comment here?
my comment. I think we want to move into some news. It's
What
sort
news?
of tech news. It's about Anonymous. They're doing stuff.
No,
you
they're
know?
not.
What was the deal here, Bile?
Hacksoring, I didn't actually read into it too much because I suspect there's not much to be learned.
Learned into.
But apparently some of the people who claim to be part of the Anonymous group actually did real hacking rather than just a distributed DOS against, what was it, the security company that was helping
The
gov-
FBI.
yeah, the FBI investigate anonymous people and arrest them and whatnot.
Smart.
So I don't know what they did or like what was breached or whatnot, but it was actually, sort of adult level computer espionage,
Okay.
bad stuff.
Do we
whatever.
want to know what they did?
As a tech person, sure.
Okay.
But as otherwise, I don't really care.
I mean, like, would it be prudent to keep it some sort of secret? Like, we shouldn't reveal the technical details of what it was they did. I mean, they
was-
seem to have come public about this, so they must have kept some secrets.
Perhaps. I mean, it depends on whether or not they think that information is useful in the future. If it's not, then
okay.
who cares? I mean,
Right.
and that's often what happens. Black or white hat hackers will just
Okay.
release information that is no longer useful to them because now that if you hack a security firm, you would hope that they'd be able to figure out how you did it, and if they did, then they're probably going to publicize it, and then it's pointless because all the, well, it's not pointless, but you can give it out to other people. It's no longer useful information.
Right.
Well, okay, so a couple questions here. Question one, I don't think necessarily applies to this particular thing because the people involved were pretty much, what's the term I want to use for? Crony benefit receiving scum?
Oh, I was going to say
guess-
douchebags.
I guess would be what I'm saying. But let's assume that it's another person, like it's one of us. Where's the property rights, or is there a property rights issue in hacksaring people's boxing? How's that work? And
All right.
pushing electrons around?
Douchebag light instead of serious douchebags.
I would say that it's not unlike it's a form of trespassing, and you're pushing your electrons onto my server doing some things that I've not authorized, and it's like light pollution from a physics perspective.
Okay, yeah, but you're not. You're making the electrons move.
Yeah,
you're
in a
propagating a potential, but they're still your electrons.
Right, but it's with reason. It's the difference that the sun is different, like how the sun is not light pollution, but you across the street are.
Okay, all right.
Like it's intentional with usually malicious intent, and I think the way in which it would be dealt with in a freer market is certainly different than what we have now. But it's no different than because that information, it's not like it's been thrown away. You've had to breach some sort of security barrier. Usually, I mean, if you leave it wide open, or if you've got like an open access point and people start using your internet, like I think you're going to get very little sympathy or restitution for that. But if you've got like a security firm, or if you've got passwords and stuff, and someone's like actively, like, you know, there's the analogy in the meat world would be, you know, you've got one of those digital entry keypads for your house,
Yep.
or your car, and you just randomly keep pressing stuff or brute force it, and then you get in. Well, you just left the door open because I magically figured out your key.
So what happens if I leave my access point open so that the girl who picks flowers on my lawn I can shoot? So basically, I keep my access point open with the idea that everybody who connects to it, I'm going to mess with them.
Depends on what is messing with them. If you're turning their images upside down and
Right.
turning everything into German, that's fine by me. I mean, that's not a problem. If you're like reversing it and turning it into an attack on them, then I think that it might be excessive, depending on what you've done.
What if you?
I think the expected behavior by an arbiter would be to cut them off, which is not something that's difficult to do.
Real
Okay.
quick, Zach posted a link in the chat room to geek.com. It's an article, The Full Fury of Anonymous Felt by Security Company HB Gary. So you can look that up if you want further information on that.
And he mentioned serious douchebags hacked the Gibson, which is a reference to Hackers.
It's a reference to what?
Hackers, the best movie ever.
I've never heard of that movie.
I think you're a liar.
No, that never
You're-
heard of
you're,
it.
You're a big fan of.
I hate that movie so hard.
Crash Overflow. I don't remember
You know,
all the names.
there's some history with my one friend that you know who was around when the movie came out, and he absolutely loved it, and I absolutely hated it. And it's funny because we took two very different paths in life. We kind of diverged at that point, and
was the
no,
divergence
not
point.
over that movie, but I kind of I got more into computers and stuff like that. Partially because of my hatred for that movie. I'm like, this is not how it works. Like,
See,
I have been
Bakunin
working.
Knew hate inspires.
I was like, I have been working very, very hard to learn how to use Telnet, and I will tell you that it does not look like this. It really doesn't. This is my point of view when the movie came out, and back then Telnet was not. As far as my little mind was concerned, Telnet was effectively an operating system. Like, you had Telnet, and Telnet had these commands that were part of Telnet, and that's how it worked. So I didn't understand that part, but I sure as heck knew that it wasn't 3D. I could tell you that.
But it had Penn Jillette.
Isn't
Oh.
everything that involves computers 3D? Like Tron, you
Actually,
go into the
nowadays, a lot of things that have to do with computers are in fact 3D. whether or not they're displayed in 3D is a totally different thing.
Yeah,
But
I love that.
Your cell phone, if you've got a modern smartphone, the rendering, like the actual graphics, even though it's 2D, is actually being done by 3D hardware.
Yeah.
So
I
it's just
never
not being used in that way.
I never would have picked that one. I would have picked I was like, yeah, dude, people love 2D, so Matrox 2D hardware and 2D acceleration is the way to go. But 3D, people definitely aren't going to do 2D on top of 3D hardware. That's just kind of crazy and wasteful, and then they end up with a lot of badass 3D hardware, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you've got nowadays NVIDIA's Tegra 2 platforms out there, and you've got some really nice Android tablets coming out using it, and it's going to be interesting. It's
going to be a good time.
Speaking of which, the Super Bowl, the Zoom,
The
commercial,
Motorola Zoom, yeah.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
It's more an homage. People are saying it's 1984, and obviously the guy in the commercial's reading 1984 on his Zoom. However, reminded me more of THX.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
Because
the
everyone's
white
dressed
suits.
in white,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
maybe a mix of the two.
You know what THX 1138 always makes me think of? Makes
What?
me think of Ademo
A beating?
and Pete,
Oh.
right?
Oh, yeah.
I think this is the vision I have in my head when I think of THX 1138. I think of Ademo and Pete in a car speeding down a tunnel, right? And a bunch of cops chasing them, and then the little display with how much money they have spent to chase Ademo and Pete for stupid stuff like wearing hats and complaining out loud and the other such nonsense that they charge these guys for, right? And the total just going up like until it reaches the point where like stop chasing them, and I'm like, woohoo, win. That's what I think of whenever
Too
I think
bad
of
the government
THX
usually
138.
doesn't act like that.
Yeah, I know, it totally stinks. I really wish I could just watch like a little, almost like one of those chip-in widgets, just like get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they're like, oh, we're not gonna do stupid crap to these people anymore.
It costs too much.
It's more like your wanted level. In,
So who would be those I think they were in the original they were like dwarves. Who are the dwarves dressed up as like evil monkeys that are jumping around scaring people in the
like outer
Badlands?
world
Yeah.
area? I don't know who would that. Maybe me. Maybe that would be the people who decided to just give up on civilization a while ago before it got all crazy, and then we.
Did you see that when they re-released that film a couple years ago, they digitally removed all the dwarves
I did not see that.
and they
actually.
made them like really bad CG like monkey things. Yeah, it's really sad.
what?
Yeah, George Lucas, jerk extraordinaire, screwing up another movie with bad CG.
Well, if you can use CG for anything, obviously you should, because nothing looks better than things that don't look realistic
like
at
CG
all.
monkeys in what was that stupid movie, Indiana Jones 4, that didn't happen, right?
CG monkeys?
Yeah, and
There was an Indiana Jones 4?
yeah.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
So,
lying.
Yeah.
I'm
I
working
wish.
my way through something one of my friends recommended now. Spartacus: Blood and Steel. And
the series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched like half of the first episode. Keep in mind, I hated the 300, by the way. So
Aw.
I watched half of the first episode, and I was
Dude,
like,
300 was awesome.
I'm like, this is brutal.
Okay, it was. I mean, I'm saying, 300 was great if you wanted to just have nothing but action in your face. You get the right speakers and the right display setup.
See, but I
then, that's
watched
just gonna be
I watched
The art
300,
direction was nice.
and I
Exactly.
knew about how it was made, and I was like, wow, there's so much you could do with this medium. You don't have to be constrained to the same old crappy establishing shots and the same old way of making film. You could really change it up. You could do something cool. And I was like, I'm watching it, and I'm like, they didn't. It's like it's just an homage to all the same old stuff, and then the camera slows down and blood flies at your face.
Some good
I
stuff.
enjoyed it.
That's what you want to see.
That's
Aaron,
that's what you
that's-
want to
that's
see.
Exactly. Like when you see a battle, sometimes you want to see somebody with a sword cut somebody else's leg off.
Sometimes
that's how it is.
Sometimes I want to see like giant monsters and like weird mutants fighting Greeks.
Exactly.
If I wanted to see that, I'd just play God of War.
That's an awesome.
I mean,
game,
that's
too.
fantastic because it's an interactive movie.
and it's interactive, which is the best part.
It's also the kind of movie that's right, or the kind of interaction that's right up my line. It's like do hit triangle. I'm like, oh, I didn't hit it. They're like, it's okay, try again. Do hit triangle. Oh, I didn't do it. Hit triangle. Yay, I can learn. Do hit square. Like the cut scenes in God of War are like just absolutely right up my brute force video game line.
They're right up there, brute force.
Yes.
For lore, I bought the like super version
Mario.
The super like box thing.
Yeah, with Pandora's box and everything for God of War 3, and it came with a download code for like the soundtrack to God of War 1, 2, and 3, and then this special like Metal 6 thing, like or 6-song download. It had like Dream Theater on it, a couple other bands, and there's this one song on there that's like breaking the fourth wall. It's about God of War. And, like, the last line has something to do with, like, you know, I don't mean to attack you or kill you or whatever, but you've got a circle over your head. So I'll have to play for it later.
That's pretty sweet. I played the demo of that over and over and over before I got the actual game, by the way.
Yeah, it was a pretty good demo. Is the one where he's walking up Gaia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
there's
He goes into a town and he shoots like a big bow and arrow thing at somebody.
Yeah, I didn't
But
play
I
that
actually had a ritual. Like I would go and I would fire up the PS3. It was upstairs, and I would play God of War. And then as soon as I was over, I'd raise my hands in the air and shout God of War, and run around the house screaming God of War. And Megan's like, "Yes, you beat it for the 50th time.
Yeah,
Good job."
I was just a witness to someone else playing God of War 3, and with a really good audio setup and a really nice TV, and it was just mind-blowing. It's like, oh my gosh.
The graphics were really disappointing, though.
Oh, gosh.
they're good
I
enough
thought
for
they
me.
were incredible.
From a far distance, but when it zoomed in for like the kill,
Yeah.
the poly count was awful,
All right,
and there was
poly
no
count
reason for them. Like you use in 3D engines, you have this level of detail thing. So as you get further away, it makes it simpler, so it's easier to render.
Exactly.
There's no reason when you zoom in to have like 5 polygons be the beast's belly.
Okay, I
and the
didn't even
Guess
notice
what?
that.
I
Bro.
didn't notice that. I was too busy playing the game.
Yeah.
He complains about video quality in games all the time.
Yeah. See, I didn't
Because
really
it's
think
spoiled
about the
by
polygon
good games
things.
like Uncharted 2.
Yeah, I didn't really think about the polygons. Usually my complaint is about textures, not about polygons. But
Well, the textures and the polygons were both bad.
Okay, see? That's-
when you
that's
zoom in those. But I mean, from far out, it looks fine usually. But when it zooms in, when you really see all the guts and gore,
and glory.
that's when it didn't look that good.
Tennyson was too busy focusing on the bonus rounds.
There was a bonus round?
In the third one?
I didn't play the game. I watched somebody else play the game.
Oh, yeah, we could play it. You'll enjoy the bonus rounds.
Yes, I hear that there's
I don't know
some
the bonus
females
rounds.
in there.
It's exciting, but while we're talking about fantastic games and something much better than Uncharted, that would be NBA Jam.
NBA Jam?
That is an awesome game.
You can play as Obama, so obviously. It's good.
You can play as you can put in the Democrats, and you could play as Obama and Hillary, and you can put in the Republicans for the other side. It's pretty. There's no anarchist team. That kind of stinks.
There's no libertarian or
Those
green
people
team
just don't
either.
play the game.
You should be able to play as the Koch brothers. How awesome would that be?
That'd be good. you should be able to play as the Menendez brothers.
That'd be awesome too.
Or the Mario Brothers.
Yeah, it's one of those games that I found the mechanic amusing, so I've played entirely too much of the game. Usually, I find 1 or 2 games that I like per decade,
All right.
and stick to them.
Let me throw in
baseball
Stars.
too.
Yes.
Gosh, more. Yeah, so let me throw in some actual game-related stuff and future news technology stuff. Let's just say it anyway. Last week, I went to a talk by Ray Kurzweil. It wasn't even a talk, really. It was a premiere of a second premiere of the documentary about Ray Kurzweil called Transcendent Man. And so, I was there and I talked to the director and I talked to Ray, and it was pretty cool. It was all right. When you're there and you already know all the stuff that Ray is going to say, it becomes very repetitive. You've heard his talk, and he says he gives it all extemporaneously. I asked him about this, and it shows, I guess, because it's the same stuff he hits all the time. He also says that he spends only a minority of his time doing the talks and writing the books. The rest of it is actually spent in the lab. Like, he spends almost all his time in the lab. But really, when you're there, you kind of just come up with nothing but complaints, criticisms, and disagreements. For some reason, even if you totally agree with the guy 99.99% of the time, it's like
it still ends up with little nitpicky things.
Yeah, and like I didn't bother doing. All I did was ask him like whether or not is giving the talks and the books and things worth his time. Like would his time be better spent doing those other things?
Okay.
And he just says that most of his time he does those other things, so he's fine with it. But that's not what I was going to talk about. I was talking about Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, which played a big part in that movie. In the book, The Singularity is Near, Ray Kurzweil's giving these breakdowns of
In that
how,
movie?
Yes, in that movie, the documentary, the one that he's
Okay.
talking about. He also has a movie by himself that he's putting out called The Singularity is Near. So, not talking about the movie, even though that'll come out a little bit later. In the book, The Singularity is Near, what he talks about is predictions of coming decades of the future. He's going to talk about technology that's going to blossom over the years. So this is a section here from the Wikipedia article of The Singularity is Near. The 2030s, mind uploading becomes possible. Nanomachines could be directly inserted into the brain and could interact with brain cells to totally control incoming and outgoing signals. As a result, truly full immersion virtual reality could be generated without the need for any external equipment. Afferent nerve pathways could be blocked, totally canceling out the real world and leaving the user with only the desired virtual experience. Brain nanobots could also elicit emotional responses from users. Using brain nanobots recorded or real-time brain transmissions of a person's daily life known as experience beamers will be available for other people to remotely experience. This is very similar to how the characters in Being John Malkovich were able to enter the mind of Malkovich and see the world through his eyes.
So,
Yeah.
can we take the input from the world and change it with the nanobots?
Yes.
So I can finally have my dream of Darian in a wedding dress every time I see him.
Yes.
Wow.
You totally could.
That is the future.
Now, to think about looking at if you weren't hooked up with a bunch of nanobots in your brain, seeing somebody else who was hooked up with a bunch of nanobots in his brain, going through a virtual experience, standing catatonic, and you would just think that this is completely, totally insane. And it might look that way.
Could you like have your nanobots so when you go and do something awesome, it looks like you're actually doing something awesome?
Yes,
like,
I mean you could try and you could mesh it in with the real world. Like all of a sudden you're inside this room, really, but inside your brain you're not seeing that you're inside this room. You're sitting inside some huge stately library or something, and these people sitting around a gigantic fire, and you're interacting with them in the way that you are, but you just don't see the world as it is. So that's just an example of interaction.
Interesting.
And so continuing for the 2030s, this is just a prediction for just 20
hold on,
years
is,
from now.
Is Kurzweil the guy who made those predictions like 20 years ago that
Yep.
were like, I don't know, some of them were kind of on the mark?
He says
and-
that he has an 87% track record. He has a 150-page paper that he put out just a little while ago called "How Am I Doing on My Predictions?" And so he gave a measurement, for very accurate, totally off, or somewhat accurate, and he gives himself an 87% thing. So it is actually pretty good.
Machines resembling upside-down ships will be able to submerge below the water. Large air-filled balloons will traverse the world in 80 days.
Thank you, Mr. Verne. Speaking of Mr. Verne, you see the Google thing today?
No.
Oh, God, I'll talk about that afterward. But anyway, so recreational uses aside, nanomachines in people's brains will allow them to greatly expand their cognitive, memory, and sensory capabilities to directly interface with computers and to telepathically communicate with other similarly augmented humans via wireless networks.
Wouldn't that just make it easier to hack your brain?
You
Like,
gotta get an unhackable brain. The economy transits in GDP percentage to more meta services such as reality fabrication, mind enhancement, and mental software. And finally, the same technology should allow people to alter the neural connections within their brains, changing the underlying basis for the person's intelligence, memories, and personality. So, it's a pretty trippy vision of just 20 years from now.
doesn't sound that great to
yeah.
me.
I
20
gotta
to
admit,
30 years.
for the people in the audience, I went to a what the heck would I call it? I went to a thing at
Okay.
at Tennyson's pad, right?
Oh, yeah.
And met some of his friends who I've met before.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance at PorkFest, hang out with Tennyson and ask him about this stuff and ask the people around him about this stuff, and they will tell you things that will blow your mind. And then they'll show you videos that will blow your mind. And you'll be like, wow, that video blew my mind. I didn't know that thing worked like that. And they're like,
So,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
for serious, it works like this. And you're like, holy cow. It's pretty impressive.
See, the places and parties, the places I hang out and parties that I have, the kind of places that you'd hear Diamondoid mechanosynthesis mentioned. So,
Yeah, so it's, the future is looking pretty bright. This from a guy who's working very hard on learning how to tie knots that may save his life one day. That being said, coming from me, the future, talking with the future with the futurists is pretty cool.
it is pretty cool here. So, I'm thinking about a video game like that. Instead of having really realistic graphics done by a computer or something like that, even though they would be done by a computer, it's directly interacting. So interactive thing.
The PS9.
The PS9, yes, just like the commercial for the PlayStation 9, that kind of thing, where you open it up and it's these liquid, reflective, spherical things that come up and actually affect your reality. Yes, it could probably be something like that.
So instead of pushing both the analog sticks with your thumbs to gouge out somebody's eyes, you use your thumbs to gouge out somebody's eyes.
Exactly.
Got it.
Speaking of the PS9 and Sony, a personal update on the fact that the PS3 was hacked and everyone's
Right.
and their dog is being attacked by Sony lawyers
on GitHub. There was something. Right?
Who's getting attacked by Sony? This
guy.
So as soon as the Fail Overflow released some code related to the hack of the PS3. What was it, like a month or two ago, whatever
Right.
now, they put up some code eventually up on GitHub, and I use GitHub.
Right.
So when I saw it, I was already logged in at the time, so I saw, GitHub, if you're familiar with source control, you can often, with different products, like fork the code, or in Git's case, you can clone it, and then submit changes back to the original authors. So I see the fork button. Like, sure, why not? It'll remind
why
me
not?
that I want to look at the code later. So I do so, as does probably hundreds of other people. And the other day I got an email, which was actually, it was like a mailing list. So everyone who had forked the Fail Overflow code that they had published got a DMCA takedown request or
Right.
notice or whatever from Sony. And so all of our code was taken off. They were good about it. They didn't cancel our accounts or shut down our accounts. They just took down those repositories. But there were hundreds of people from all over the world who had these accounts. And so I'm on this anonymous mailing list with all these other people. And there's a guy from Brazil or Portugal who's going, I'm not an American. I'm not in California. Put my shit back. This is not okay. But GitHub is an American company,
Right.
and they were real good about it. They're like, well, look, we're an American company. We have to abide by the DMCA, or they'll come after us, and we'll be toast.
And the DMCA is the
Digital Millennium
Copyright
Act, which is an abomination of intellectual property oppressiveness. And and that was passed years ago. And
You're an IP socialist.
yes. And so... Which, by the way, next week we'll have what the hell's his name? Going blank.
Stephen Kinsella.
That guy.
Stefan Kinsella.
Stefan Kinsella.
Stefan Kinsella.
To talk
And-
about IP.
Yes, to talk about IP. So I got this takedown notice. There's all this back and forth. Most of it has a lot of editorial content that is really uncalled for. I mean, it's not like GitHub can do much about it without putting their business at risk. But they were really good about it. They set up a website. It was like github.com/DMCA or something. And it said, look, if you get a response, like a DMCA takedown notice, follow these steps. And this is the official channel for doing a counter notice. And once that occurs, we'll put your stuff back. And the people who threatened you have 14 days to respond, which in our case, Sony has not yet. And so all of our stuff is currently up. I suspect that Sony will respond within the 14 days. But it's interesting to actually see the insides of these takedown notices and all this kind of stuff. And recently, as I think a part of this is a whole round of attacks by the Sony lawyers. They're going after Twitter to get the identities or as much information as they can from Twitter about the people who have been using Twitter who are part of Fail Overflow. They're going after Google and with YouTube to get even apparently the commenters on videos of their presentation and any other social service that those guys may be a part of. They're going after to find out as much information as possible so then they can send them personally DMCA like takedown notices, which, as we learned with CSS and what was that guy's name, the young guy who cracked the DVD.
Oh, I
CSS.
forget, but I.
But anyway,
know what
Oh,
you're
you mean
talking about.
George? GeoHot.
No,
No,
that's- I'm
DCSS.
talking DCSS years ago. When
John?
yeah,
DVD John.
DVD John.
Yeah.
Like once that's leaked, it's on the internet. Like it's just everywhere. And so good luck, Sony. Screw you guys, and good luck, I guess.
But do you think they can use their giant stick to beat the people who originally did it enough that when they release a new system, people won't try to crack it again?
No, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like, oh well, if they, if the government beats anyone enough, does that somehow break everyone's human spirit? No. I mean, if you throw Fail Overflow in jail, some other guy who thinks he's more badass and won't get caught will do the exact same thing, and he'll stay anonymous. So
Breaks a lot of human spirit, though. I mean, Tennyson's brought it up before, and we were just saying earlier, you get a lot of people who are like, well, you can't fight City Hall, that sort
yeah,
of
you
mentality.
do, and then you have other people like myself who are like, screw Sony, and just keep on trucking. I mean, my coworkers are
Keep on trucking.
my coworkers are like, you get involved with bad stuff all the time. If you get convicted, you're gone. Like
Right,
you
yeah.
can't work here anymore.
I'm in the same
like
boat.
I know, I know, and I'll probably be blacklisted from a lot of places too. But yeah, this is what I do. So
Should do it more anonymously, I guess.
no, I don't like doing things anonymously. I
Too
tell all my
bad.
coworkers all my adventures, and
Yeah.
it works out okay.
See, maybe you could take down, the government, and you could take down Sony and the corporations and the DMCA, and I think that'll be pretty good. So he's taken on DHS and won. He's going to take on Sony and win that too. And who's he going to take on next?
I think Sony
Could
has
be
a weak
you.
case.
Tennyson Industries.
Here you go.
I think Sony has a
Can't
weak
win.
case, and I think they could actually bring me in
Right.
on the any lawsuits or anything they do, but I'm a minor character, so just like all the other hundreds of people who just forked it. I mean, they aren't the creators. The only thing they would just go after me for publicizing it. But it's unlikely. But I think Sony has a weak case, and it'll be interesting to see because, in effect, they've jailbroken the PS3. It's no different than the cell phone, which the what is it? The patent, not the patent office, Copyright Office of the United States said is totally okay and is exempted from the DMCA. So if this goes up to a higher court, they're gonna have to figure out which is which.
Yeah, regarding doing things anonymously or not, I think it's definitely a good idea to give consideration to how much do I want to put my name out there, how much do I want people to know where this is coming from. But that's not to say that doing things publicly doesn't have its merits. It can set an example. And even from a security standpoint, it can mean more people are likely to stick up for you because they actually know you, or that it's harder for them to take you down if you have, a hold or a reputation in society.
I don't actively try to do things publicly, but I don't go out of my way to hide everything. I mean, my domain name or all my domains, it's not like I'm paying to have them private. I mean, you can find me, but I don't publicize who I am.
Yeah.
It's just a pain to go through all the effort, and unless you're really, really dedicated to it, someone can still find out who you are. Unless you're Kevin Carson.
I like to think of it this way, right? Make sure that,
I know who that guy is,
whoever
though.
you work for needs the job done more than you need the job. That's very important in life. And two, if they fire me tomorrow, I will be cross-country skiing in Grafton on Friday.
So you got a backup plan. Always have a backup plan, a plan B, if it were.
Exactly. So now that I've left my job, I'm gonna go do whatever I want to do.
You're gonna
So,
go crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna do whatever it is I want to do, and I'm going to do that very soon. I'm gonna go to CPAC this weekend too.
Why? That is like the last thing I would want.
I know, but
There's women there.
That's one thing, yeah. But I think being subversive and trying to destroy the conservatives is
It's a worthy goal.
It's a worthy goal.
Julian's going to be there. Julian
You-
Heiklin.
Just bring
Makes
a
me
lot of
happy.
wherever you find Republicans gathering.
Yes.
Bring homosexuals and minorities.
That's what they're
And
looking for, though.
Yeah, and then that'll mess it up, and then
I could
That'll
save
mess it up by
their
virtue of the
networks.
fact that they're there.
Yeah, I could save time by just getting gay minorities and bring them there and make sure that they're also veterans. And so And then make sure, after hours, get everybody, slightly drunk, which they do every CPAC, and then nature will take its course.
Then
The
people's heads explode.
Yeah, the Republicans will do what they have been known to do from all the news stories over the last few years.
Which is
Come out of the closet and condemn themselves.
well, okay then.
Hypocrisy.
That should be very exciting.
By the way, I've been threatened by Zach Fix.
Again?
I'm gonna have to make this very public.
Oh.
He says Fix Brewing will shut Bile down. Our law firm, Fix Law, is unstoppable. I saw our cider recipe was posted to libertyactivism.info.
Oh.
So
You
it's
should-
all over.
So
You
by
should
take
add,
bile down, does he mean get you really drunk? Is that how fixed law firm works?
You should add
go
Thinking
down,
Liberty
Buck.
to your takedown, Zach, because we gave away your best liquor recipe with the orange juice earlier on the program. I'm pretty sure that's owned by Zach Fix Brewing as well. So
That's fermented vine fruit.
fermented death.
Fermented mind fruit. What would that be? Like mind fruit.
That would be like your idea for an invention that has sat in your head so long that it's eaten the sugars in your brain and made carbon dioxide.
So like a
it's
very-
exactly what happens to a dream deferred. There you go.
Like a suppressed desire.
There you
All right,
go.
So it's about 10 o'clock now, so we're going to have to sign out on this great episode of Thinking Liberty. So don't suppress your desires. Don't ferment, your desire for freedom.
But do foment.
Do foment. Do foam at the mouth when you are concluding your radio show.
Foam at the mouth revolutions.
Perhaps there's a revolution brewing below the surface of society. If that's the case, we need to add more yeast and brew over the top.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Metaphors running out.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.